As is our custom, we'll begin with a word of prayer by our parliamentarian, Councilman at Large Ron Brewer.
Shall we pray? Eternal God, we come today, oh God, to say thank you for how you have kept us. Lord, even if everything is going wrong, oh God, we know that you still make things right. And for that, oh God, we ask that you continue to watch over us.
Good evening. Welcome to the August 17th, 2021 regular meeting of the Gary Common Council. As is our custom, we'll begin with a word of prayer by our parliamentarian, Councilman at Large Ron Brewer.
Shall we pray? Eternal God, we come today, oh God, to say thank you for how you have kept us. Lord, even if everything is going wrong, oh God, we know that you still make things right. And for that, oh God, we ask that you continue to watch over us.
Good evening. Welcome to the order will now lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of
America
America and to
and
the republic
for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman Brewer. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Atkins. Councilman Brewer.
Here.
Councilwoman Brown. Councilman Brown.
Here.
Councilwoman Caldwell.
Here.
Councilman Lay. Councilman Lay. Councilman Weatherspoon.
Here.
Councilman Williams. Councilman Williams.
He's logging
Muted.
on now.
I think I see a Galaxy S9.
They're here. Yeah.
Yes, he just answered.
President Godwin.
Present, and I see Councilman Lay has logged on.
Councilman Lay.
Yes. We're present. I'm not sure where we are.
Okay, Mr. President, there are 8 present, 1 absent.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With 8 members present, we have a quorum to conduct the business of the Gary Common Council. Assignment of council pending ordinances, and council members, before you are the minutes of our July 30th, 2021 special meeting. Is there a motion to approve said minutes?
So move, Mr. President.
It's been moved by Councilman Brewer. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Councilman Weatherspoon. Any questions or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Brewer.
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown. Councilwoman Brown.
You're muted.
Muted.
You're muted. Okay.
Yes.
Councilman Brown.
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell.
Yes.
Councilman Lay.
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon.
Yes.
Councilman Williams. Councilman Williams.
Say it again. Say it.
Yes.
President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
With a vote of 8-0, the minutes of our July 30th, 2021 meeting are approved. Council members, before you are the minutes of our August 4th, 2021 meeting. Is there a motion to approve said minutes?
So move, Mr. President.
It's been moved by Councilman Brewer. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Councilman Weatherspoon and Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell. Any questions or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Brewer.
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown.
Yes.
Councilman Brown.
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell.
Yes.
Councilman Lay.
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon.
Yes.
Councilman Williams.
Again. Try it again.
Yes.
And President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
With a vote of 8-0, the minutes of our August 4th, 2021 meeting are approved. Council pending ordinances and resolutions on first reading.
Mr. President,
Councilman Brewer.
Yes, I'd like to suspend the rules and add to the agenda for tonight on first reading, CPO 2021-63.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Councilman Brewer and seconded by Councilman Barnes Caldwell. Any questions or discussion? And just FYI for the public interest, this relates to a mask mandate for schools within the city of Gary. Any questions or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
With a vote of 8-0, CPO 2021-63 is added to our agenda. Madam Clerk, please proceed.
CPO 2021-57, an ordinance establishing a budget in Fund 877 LDA, sponsored by Mayor Jerome A. Prince, City of Gary, Malik Harper, City Controller.
Ways and Means.
CPO 2021-58, an ordinance authorizing a temporary interfund loan between City of Gary funds, sponsored by Mayor Jerome A. Prince, City of Gary, Malik Harper, City Controller.
Finance.
CPO 2021-59, an ordinance approving subsidies for the general fund during calendar year 2021, sponsored by Mayor Jerome A. Prince, City of Gary, Malik Harper, City Controller.
Finance.
CPO 2021-60, an ordinance approving a transfer of funds from Fund 872, Wheel Excise Surtax, to Fund 484, Community Crossings Grant, and establishing appropriations, sponsored by Mayor Jerome A. Prince, City of Gary, Malik Harper, City Controller.
Ways and Means.
CPO 2021-61, an ordinance approving a transfer of funds from Fund 872, Wheel Excise Surtax, to Fund 448, Wheel Tax Road, sponsored by Mayor Jerome A. Prince, City of Gary, Malik Harper, City Controller.
Ways and Means.
CPO 2021-62, an ordinance accepting a donation from Horizon Bank to be used to purchase school supplies for the first responders event, sponsored by Dwight Williams, Councilor of the 6th District, Mayor Jerome A. Prince, City of Gary, Malik Harper, City Controller.
Finance.
CPO 2021-63, an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Gary, Indiana, requiring all persons entering schools within the city limits of the City of Gary to wear face coverings to prevent the spread of coronavirus disease, sponsored by Mayor Jerome A. Prince, City of Gary, Dr. Roland Walker, Gary Health Commission.
Public Safety.
Mr. President, ends the assignment of pending ordinances and resolutions.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell.
Mr. President, is it okay if I do all of them at one time?
Is there any objection? Seeing and hearing none, please proceed.
Okay. Mr. President, Ways and Means has before it CPO 2021-57. For the record, I approve this for reporting out to the council. Councilman Brown?
Yes.
Councilman Mike Brown. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Mr. President, we have CPO 2021-60. For the record, I approve this ordinance for reporting out to the council. Councilman Mike Brown.
Yes.
Mr. President, we have CPO 2021-61. For the record, I approve this for reporting out to the council. Councilman Brown?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. President, a majority of the committee has approved CPO 2021-57, 2021-60, and 2021-61.
Thank you, Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell. Councilwoman Brown.
Mr. President, Finance Committee has before it CPO 2021-58, 2021-59, and 2021-62. For the record, I approve these three ordinances for reporting out to the council. Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell
Yes.
and Councilman, I don't know.
It's just going to be Barnes Caldwell tonight.
Okay.
Right.
Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. President, majority of the Finance Committee has approved CPO 2021-58, 59, and 62 for reporting out to the council.
Thank you, Councilwoman Brown. Councilman Brewer.
Mr. President, Public Safety has before CPO 2021-63. I approve this to be reported out. Councilman Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, majority of Public Safety has approved CPO 2021-63 for the reporting out.
Thank you, Councilman Brewer. Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell.
I move. We would like to, Ways and Means would like to report out CPO 2021-57, 2021-60, and 2021-61.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Brown.
Finance would like to report out CPO 2021-58, 59, and 62.
Thank you, Councilwoman Brown. Councilman Brewer.
Mr. President, Public Safety would like to report out CPO 2021-63.
Thank you, Councilman Brewer. This time we will move to our special and select. Any council members for special and select?
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell.
the 5th District had a couple of community forums since the last meeting. Had the opportunity to have a meeting with the bankers that are located in the 5th District, which is Horizon Bank, Chase Bank, and First Financial. It was a very good meeting, and they provided a lot of good information to the residents of the city. And also we had a meeting yesterday with Mayor Prince, Code Enforcement Millie Glenn, and General Services Rachel Caesar. So that was an informative meeting also. And our last meeting for the month of August will be Monday, August the 23rd at 5:30. It will be in person and via Zoom. It will be at Steel City Academy, 2650 West 35th Avenue. That's in the Glen Park area behind Village Shopping Center. We have a business, Viking Transportation, that is trying to locate to our city, and they are interested in using the property on 37th and Chase. So please come out and give your input. That's Monday, August the 23rd at 5:30 at Steel City Academy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Barnes Caldwell. Other members for special and select?
Mr.
Mr.
President,
Chair,
Councilman Lay and then Councilman Williams.
I have a question about CPO 2021-22. Why 62? Why is this an ordinance? You normally just accept donations.
Right.
I agree. I'm not sure why it was put in ordinance form, but I will turn to Councilman Williams. I think this relates to your district, or who?
yes, Councilman Lay, this is a donation from the Horizon Bank to the 6th District. It was originally with buying what we have purchased back to school supplies, and this was supposed to be distributed on during the first responders event, but it was rained out. So, which moves to the next thing, which I was going to wait after you, Mr. Lay. On September 25th, we're going to host a fast at the Glen Theater, and those supplies will be passed out to students that day.
Why is it an ordinance form? Why does it have to be a law?
Well, it's a donation that the account has been set up by Mr. Malik, our controller.
Well, let me do this if I may. Attorney Williams, would you like to, I guess it's a matter of style, right? And I do understand the point the Councilman Lay is making, that we have not, as I've seen, done this in ordinance format, but Attorney Williams and or Attorney Pohl, would you like to comment?
I agree with Attorney Lay, unless there is a specific requirement that requires the setting up of a non-reverting fund. That may be the reason why the controller has sought to do it in an ordinance form. Other than that, I see no reason why it can't be done like we always do with Councilwoman Mary Brown simply reporting it out and you voting to accept it. It's probably more of a controller question than a legal question.
Well, in that case, Mr. Harper.
Yes, so what I was originally told here is it needed to be appropriated out. With all donations are supposed to be appropriated. And I don't see that, written in the actual information here, but that's what I was told. Is that not correct?
Well, I guess the question I would ask is who told you that?
Yeah, that's the question.
If I may speak,
Who is
this is Mr. Outlaw.
Oh,
Mr.
I'm
Outlaw.
sorry, I didn't recognize
Okay.
you. Mr. Outlaw.
So usually, and now that came from me, because usually in my past history, we're dealing with the fire department. Whenever we got a donation, we always had to appropriate it by ordinance. And I recommended to Sherry to recommend to Councilman Williams to do it by appropriation, because the donation account doesn't have funds. So once we appropriate it, and there should be a letter accompanying the appropriation saying specifically what the donation was for. So that was my recommendation to Ms. Smith to relate to Councilman Williams.
Okay, it seems to me that there's no harm in it being in ordinance format. It just departs from our tradition. So if there's no harm, then I think we should just proceed as is, and we can have an offline conversation about the best way to proceed forward while maintaining compliance with State Board of Accounts and our own laws and protocols. If there's no objection, I'd like to move forward.
Mr. President, I do have one objection. I do understand Councilman Lake's concern, but if we're going to take this approach, why not do a resolution form instead of ordinance?
So
make the ordinance is law.
Yeah. Well, I guess it is a legal transaction, right? I mean, we are officially receiving the dollars on behalf of the city. If we can, I don't know if we want to do this, have a 15 to 20 minute dissertation on it this evening. But is there any urgency in just moving this forward to the next council meeting? I don't think we need to, we're not passing it in all three readings. If it's been assigned to committee, it can be discussed there. But it's just something we can discuss during committee, I guess. We're not voting on it tonight.
Well, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I agree with Attorney Williams. I mean, in the past, we've done it a different way, but I do understand Mr. Harper's approach to this. So if it has to go to committee, it can go to committee. But would it be best to do it the way we've done in the past?
Let's discuss that in committee. I think that way between now and then, the various attorneys and Mr. Outlaw and Mr. Harper can come to some consensus, and we can probably do it best in a committee format.
Okay.
All right. Any other matters on special and select?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Williams.
I would like to remind, the residents of the City District that this week, August 19th, we will meet at Glenn Theater. It would also be a meeting, a Zoom meet as well. I'm hoping that I'll receive this certain guests of Chief Brian Evans, Arlene Cole, Rachel Morgan, AJ Bittner from Director of Redevelopment, also Kirkendall with Demolition Coordinator. So my Code Enforcement Officer, Brandon Hinkle, will be attending the meeting. So the meeting is Thursday, August 19th at 6:00 p.m. Which is this fate, and discuss their concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Williams. Any other members for special and select? Right, well, just briefly, I will have my next First District Community Meeting, giving a heads up, on Thursday, September 16th at 6:30 p.m. It will be focused on infrastructure and Development within the first district. We will have Mr. AJ Bittner from the Redevelopment Commission, Mr. Kuykendall on Demolition, and Mr. David Schilling, the city engineer, discuss road projects, upcoming demolitions, RFPs, RFQs, any kind of development or infrastructure improvements that are underway or planned in the immediate future within the first district. Any other members for special and select?
Mr. President, there was back several meetings back, there was an issue of whether we should do something on all three readings, which had to do with construction. Last report I got from Attorney Colvin is they did not reach that date. So I don't know, and I suspected it wouldn't. Has that been done yet? I haven't gotten a subsequent report. And I didn't ask her for it either, too, so I'm not blaming her. They didn't get it done. We went through all of that debate. Some young lady even found necessary to criticize the fact that we wanted to send this to committee, which is where government is run from, committees. And I certainly agree with what you just did with Mr. Williams' ordinance. So they start under construction, the demolition, not construction. Did they do that? I'd like to know where that is.
I agree, and I recall that there was urgency, and I believe you prophesied that it wouldn't necessarily happen as quickly as we thought. But I think the proper person, I'll just turn to Attorney McCain. Is there anyone or Attorney Pohl that this was related to? I think it was about, 20 or 30 properties that were set to be demolished. I think the RFPs had already been awarded, and we had a list of them.
That is correct, Mr. President. I recall that conversation as well. I don't know if Mr. Kuykendall is on the line tonight. He would be the manager in charge of the demolition.
Correct. I don't see him on here. So I think what I'll just ask is that maybe we can get an update on this, maybe at our, Finance Committee meeting or at one of our committee meetings next week where everybody will be present.
Very good.
Something in writing, that's always helpful too.
I will send him an email now while it's fresh on my mind.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
I also need to announce that we're going to have a towing committee executive session because it's pending litigation. That's the only reason it's executive session for Tuesday, August the 24th at 5:00 p.m. And it will be a hybrid, Zoom and or in person. So that's Tuesday, August 24th at 5:00 p.m. Towing committee executive session. Pending litigation. Any other special and select? Okay. Let's see, I got a little message here. Okay, Mr. Harper, your hand is raised. It may be an accident. Okay, at this time, we'll move to council pending ordinances and resolutions on third and or final reading.
CPO 2020-80, an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Gary providing for hearing and public comment on the transfer sale of certain properties formerly owned by the GUEA, sponsored by AJ Bittner, Redevelopment Department.
Councilman Brewer.
Mr. President, I move to send this back to committee, CPO 2021-80.
Been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Lay. Any questions or discussion?
Mr.
Seeing and
President,
hearing, go Councilman Brewer.
I need to give this a committee date because I don't have anything scheduled inside of committee. So this will go back to committee August the 24th at 5 p.m.
5:30. Can we do 5:30?
5:30.
We're going to have towing committee at 5. Okay.
Okay, that's fine.
All right. It's been moved and Councilman Lay still seconds it.
Yes.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Brown, I'm sorry, Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown, Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams, Councilman Williams,
He's muted.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, vote is 8-0.
With a vote of 8-0, CPO 2021-80 is moved back to the Planning and Development Committee with a meeting on Tuesday, August 24th at 5:30 p.m.
C-
Mr.
CPO 2,
Attorney Poll, is there?
Yeah, I just had a real quick question. Obviously moving into committee, there's no issue with that. At the last committee meeting, I did want to clarify, the administration had asked that we be able to set, because there's the requirement of the consent decree requires 30-day notice for a public hearing, in the disbursement of those properties. We had asked for that September 21st council meeting date to be set as that public hearing date, and seeing that today we're at August 17th, we would need to get that out and published by the 22nd. We just wanted some clarification on our end if we were still okay with putting that forward as the essentially publicizing that or publishing that as the notice date for the 30-day requirement.
Well, I don't think that would work because the meeting won't be until the 24th, I think, right? It won't be until August 24th, so it puts you outside of 30 days at September 21st.
Absolutely.
So perhaps you should publish for October 5th.
October 5th?
That'll be the next council meeting.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I have a question.
Councilman Lay?
I will not be able to be present on the 24th for either meeting. Is it possible to move the one that you're not going to have a public meeting to October the 25th? I'm sorry, the 5th. I think you said the 5th. Would Mr. Brewer move this 24th date to some other date?
Yes, I can move it. What about the 28th? Do that work for you?
Yeah, the 28th would be okay.
Okay, I can move my meeting to the 28th.
There's no way I could be here there on the 24th.
Right.
Okay,
No way.
problem. So
Do we need to reconsider the motion? Or as long as it's published with new date, is that sufficient?
yeah, if there's no objection by no one now, and we make it clear that we're changing the date to the 28th.
Okay. Well, seeing and hearing no objection, then we just duly note that the Planning and Development Committee meeting related to CPO 2020-80 will be on August the 25th at 5:30 p.m. Via Zoom. Okay.
August the 28th.
August the 28th, I'm sorry, August the 28th at 5:00 p.m. And we'll stick with our, let me ask Attorney Williams, is it okay if we move the towing committee executive session to the 28th as well? Or do you think we should maintain the Tuesday the 24th?
August 28th is a Saturday.
Yes, but it has to be August, you must have meant August 31st.
August 31st, yes.
Okay, so August 31st for the Planning and Development meeting. And I want to confirm with Attorney Williams that if it's okay to also have the towing meeting on the 31st, or should we keep our August 24th date?
I don't think there's any urgency. I'll defer to Attorney Poe because I do know that the RFPs were due, I believe today. If they're not going to award prior to the 31st, then that's no issue.
Thank you, Attorney Williams. Attorney Poe?
The Board of Public Works has not met yet. The meeting will be tomorrow. There is a proposed, there's an agenda item, and I'm not a fortune teller, but the Board of Public Works will take up a motion, I believe, at as to whether or not to extend that period for the accepting of the towing bids. My assumption is that is going to be accepted, but again, that's I don't sit on the Board of Public Works, and I'm not a fortune teller, but I do know that is I would anticipate that the accepting of the bids will, if it's 2 weeks from tomorrow, it would go past that August 31st date.
Well,
Okay.
Attorney
Mr.
McCain
President.
is on the, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say we have the head of the Board of Works is Deputy Mayor McCabe. So,
That's
Attorneys William, McCain, Poe. Attorneys William, McCain, Poe. For that clarification. So let's just stick with having our executive session then on August 31st at 5
Well,
o'clock
Mr.
p.m.
Chair,
Councilman
Mr. Chair,
Attorney Williams.
14 days would not suffice, because that would be the 31st, and they potentially could award the contracts on the same day that you're having the meeting. It would probably be better if that would set out 21 days.
Well, I agree with you, but that would actually be September 1st because tomorrow is the 18th, right?
That's correct.
So it'd be September 1st before they could receive it, but
No,
they hear our conversation.
Well,
and
14, yeah. Well, if you count today, 14 days would be the 31st.
But the meeting is tomorrow for Public Works, right? Which is the 18th.
No, I'm saying they stated they would set it out 14 days. Your meeting is scheduled for what day?
The 31st. So their meeting is
That's the
tomorrow,
same
the
day.
18th.
It's the next day.
It's the next day.
And-
It would be the next day. Yeah, okay.
And just to
I mean, that
clarify,
gives you 1 day, but
just to clarify too, what'll occur is that if I'm not mistaken, and how we typically handle the towing contracts is those bids are, they are accepted up until that date. That's the date where they will stop receiving the bids. Then they wouldn't necessarily award on that date. They would review the bids going forward and then award at a subsequent meeting, if I'm not mistaken.
no, that's correct, Attorney Poe. What I'm trying to avoid, and without getting into too much detail, you're very aware of some of the communication. It very well may be where the council changes an ordinance, okay? And if that happens, then you have received bids that are really no good. So I was hoping to have the conversation with the council and the executive branch prior to accepting them, because there may be a need for change in some of the language in the RFQ. That's my only point. You may receive bids that are not worth the paper they're written on.
Well,
That's my only concern. But if you want to go through the process twice, that's fine. That's the only thing I'm trying to avoid.
No, I understand. I understand now. I guess what the request is for the Board of Works to entertain a motion that would extend the deadline farther out than the 14 days.
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, please proceed, Madam Clerk.
You muted, Madam
You're
Clerk.
muted.
CPO 2021-55, an ordinance amending Title 15 entitled Land Usage, Chapter 123 entitled Zoning Code of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Gary, Indiana. Petition Bianca Jones, 4133 East 11th Avenue, Gary, Indiana. Property at 4133 East 11th Avenue, Gary, Indiana.
Councilman Brewer.
Mr. President, I move for passage of CPO 2021-55.
It's been moved by Councilman Brewer. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Barnes Caldwell. We'll have the overview at this time. Mr. Berea.
Hello, everyone. The petitioner is Bianca Jones. The affected real estate is 4133 West East 11th Avenue. And the petitioner is requesting a use variance to operate transitional housing on the property. You have the details in your packet. This petition was heard at the BZA meeting in July and received an unfavorable recommendation on the basis that there is no demonstrated hardship as a feature of the property to justify a use variance. I'll just point the council to the second page of the petition that identifies prior that use variances, the criteria for use variances are subsequent to there being an established hardship. And a hardship is defined as one, the particular physical surroundings, shape, or topographical conditions of the specific property involved would result in particular hardship upon the owner, as distinguished from a mere inconvenience if the strict letter of the regulations were carried out. Two, the conditions upon which the requested variation is based would not be applicable generally to other property within the same zoning classification. Three, the alleged difficulty or hardship has not been created by any person presently having an interest in the property. Four, the granting of the variation will not be materially detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to other property or improvements in the neighborhood in which the property is located. And finally, five, the proposed variation is within the purposes of this chapter, section 123-2, and but more specifically, but not limited to the following, will not impair the adequate supply of light to the adjacent property, substantially increase the congestion on public streets, increase the danger of fire, and increase endanger public safety, substantially diminish or impair property values within the neighborhood, improves access management, or will not negatively impact or affect ecologically, scientifically significant areas, fish and wildlife habitat areas, or identified natural features, or mitigate any negative impacts. That concludes the staff overview. I will take any questions at this time.
Mr. Berea, what is your recommendation?
I recommended that there was no demonstrated hardship, therefore there was no justification for a use variance.
Thank you. With the petitioner, I see that she's on. Did you have any comment that you'd like to make? And other council members have questions?
I do.
Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell.
Ms. Jones, I love your ideal. I really do. I just don't think it's planned out as good as it could be. And I actually reached out to Mr. Gigi George, our commission, the executive director of the Commission for Women, and she is willing to help you if you would like her help, so that you can get all the things together that you need, because I would hate to vote you down today. And would you please accept that help?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
All right, any comments or other questions from council members?
Mr. President,
Councilman Lay?
Mr. Berea, would your recommendation be the same for, and I understand which one we're talking about, but CPO 2021-56?
Yeah, I will state that every petition stands on its own merit and gets judged independently. But the context of both 55 and 56 are residential properties surrounded by a residential neighborhood. So the same criteria of lack of hardship applies. And my recommendation would be that businesses should be located within areas that are zoned by right for business, unless a demonstrated hardship is identified.
Well, thank you, Mr. Berea. I certainly share Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell's sentiments in part. I think that from our committee meeting, there was a lot of unanswered questions and a lot, right, that needed to be fleshed out. before I could comfortably vote yes. Of course, this particular one is in my district. I did have someone called who lives down the street that's against it, but that doesn't mean that I'm against it because one person is against it. I do think that we have to, and this is not just related to you, but to a lot of the zoning variances, look at how we are developing the city. What is the long-term plan for many of these blocks and areas? How does it relate to the comprehensive plan? Because we don't want to get into the business of spot development where we have random uses happening in a variety of areas. And then 10 or 20 years from now, we have just everything going on in ways that don't contribute to a larger vision or plan for the city. I don't know, Attorney Williams, Councilman Brewer, I don't support it for the one in my district, right? So I'm not going to vote yes on it, even perhaps after further fleshing out because of use issues. But I do think maybe you might consider laying it on the table, and maybe it could be reconsidered after some of that research has been done. So, Attorney Williams, what's your thought on that option?
That is one of the available options to the body. Of course, a member would have to bring it off the table.
Right. Well, we have a motion on the table to pass. I think that there are some concerns. I don't know if others have thoughts that they'd like to share.
I do.
Councilman Lay.
When you lay an item on the table, it is nothing wrong with the item you're laying. Some other problem exists. Even if you look at the two ordinances, as I understand, she don't live in either one of these facilities. And all due respect to Ms. George, I think I talked to her about helping her organization get a 501c3. Now, the last time we discussed this 501c3, she was trying to change the LLC somehow to a 501c3. This is all going to take time. I mean, we would lay it on the table, and I don't know, of course we could do it. I don't know how long it would be there. And they would have to go away and do certain things. If that is the case, I think she should withdraw this, because in its present form, I will certainly not vote for it. It's too many holes in it. We certainly have to be responsible as representative government what we do. So I think she should withdraw all, correct whatever she needs to correct that we indicated in the committee meeting. I think we have too many items open. Let me just put it that way, that we need to close. Just to put it on the table, and she goes away literally for months to do this. I would think she should withdraw it. We don't lay it anywhere. And it certainly will be of no injury to her, because that gives her time to come back with something that possibly I would be willing to vote for. Putting it on the table, I don't know how long it'll be out there.
Right.
President,
Councilman Brewer.
I believe the petitioner spoke in committee meeting that time is of essence with this ordinance here. This is not a property that she owns herself outright. So basically, for her to take possession of this property, we would have to pass this. And I think if we would lay it on the table, the petitioner would not have the properties to do what she's trying to do at this time. So that wouldn't work for the petitioner herself. I also do see that there is some issues, just with the issues Mr. Boyer brought up. There's no way we get around those issues there, where we lay it on the table or we get a petitioner more time. There's issues that Mr. Boyer brought up that you just can't get around those issues. And that's a concern for me.
I understand. So I think we should just vote on it. And even if it does not pass, that doesn't stop the petitioner from coming back at some point. I know we had some discussions about how long or if there's any time limitation, but In any event, I know there's leases that you were going to enter into that you hadn't yet entered into based on our decision. So perhaps we should just vote and just move forward. We do have a motion, so if there's any other questions or discussion about the motion on the table?
Just briefly,
Councilman Lane?
it does affect it. I think her best out. If we put it on the table, that of course, we've eliminated that. You got to be careful of the running of the statute of limitation on this also.
Right.
I thought Mr. Brewer would raise that we have to do it within so many days or it automatically pass. We did that with one of them. So if I was her, and again, I'm giving her unpaid, unrequested legal advice, I'd withdraw it. I really would. And start at ground one and get it done. We voted down, then we got to figure out how many days. I think Attorney Williams said 6 months, but my memory may not be correct. So I think she should be given the third option to withdraw it. That's my last comment, Mr. President.
Well, thank you, Councilman Lay. Ultimately, I think it would have to be a council member to do that, but what's your pleasure? I mean, what would you have a particular preference to the petitioner? Or would you prefer we just vote on it this evening?
If I withdraw it, I have to start all over again. That was a lot of money that I have to start over $1,000 for each property. So I don't know if I want to do that.
Okay. Well, I think we should just take the vote and move forward. So are there any other comments or questions, discussions about the motion that we're currently before us?
Let me just ask this
Councilman
question
Brewer?
to Mr. Boyer. When you all came down to you all's decision not to recommend this favorable to come to the council, was there any discussion with the petitioner how you all came to that point and what's the possibility going forward? What may happen?
Yes, we even had a Zoom conference call for all petitioners in leading up to that BZA meeting to discuss with them the difference between if you live on the property and then you can request a special use as permitted by the municipal code. If you do not live on the property and then you pursue the use variance route, there's the hardship issue and the criteria are more stringent. So all petitioners that went before the BZA during that meeting had opportunity to participate in that Zoom call, which they would be informed of this difference and the criteria.
Thank you.
All right. And any other questions, discussion about the motion before us?
I do. I have a question.
Councilman Barnes Caldwell?
If she withdraws, she says she loses that money that she spent, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we vote it down,
She also loses.
yes,
That's the
we start
same.
all over again, right?
Absolutely.
No, not necessarily, actually. If you vote it down, you can bring a motion to reconsider at any time. That may be the most economic approach for her. If she can get whatever the concerns are, there can be a motion to reconsider this actual ordinance with, of course, whatever amendments are made. And she wouldn't have to go through the zoning process again.
That's voting it down?
Yes, if it failed, any member would be able to bring a motion to reconsider at any time.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And it seems like there are just some larger issues that I think Councilman Lay and Councilman Brewer have raised and that Mr. Brewer raised around the hardship, right? I mean, that's a clear challenge, regardless of the curriculum and programming and other questions around space that we had. So, but in any event, if there's no other questions or discussions on the motion, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Brewer,
No.
Councilwoman Brown,
No.
Councilman Brown,
No.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
No.
Councilman Lay,
No.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
No.
Councilman Williams,
No.
and President Godwin.
No.
This President vote is 0 yes, 8 no's.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With 0 yeas and 8 nays, CPO 2021-55 fails for lack of sufficient votes.
CPO 2021-56, an ordinance amending Title 15 entitled Land Usage, Chapter 123 entitled Zoning Code of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Gary, Indiana. Petitioners Bianca Jones, 1324 East 39th Avenue, Gary, Indiana. Property at 1324 East 39th Avenue, Gary, Indiana.
Mr. President,
Councilman Brewer.
move for passage of CPO 2021-56 on third and final.
Is there a second? It's been moved by Councilman Brewer and seconded by Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell. Bill, the overview at this time, Mr. Berea.
Good evening. The petitioner is Bianca Jones. The owner is Albert Fundren. The affected real estate is 1324 East 39th Avenue. The petitioner is requesting a use variance to operate transitional housing on the property. Again, while each petition gets evaluated independently, it is staff's recommendation that there's no demonstrated hardship as a feature of the property with the criteria that I mentioned previously. And the BZA in July had voted a unfavorable recommendation to forward to the Common Council. I'll take any questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Berea. Any questions or discussion?
I have one.
Councilman Lay.
Does the BZA determine if property is current on their taxes?
I do not believe that's one of the criteria that is in the use variance criteria that the BZA uses to make a determination.
Yeah, I'm not saying this property is. I was just asking a general question. So you said you don't think they look at it. Excellent.
Thank you,
Very
Councilman
taxed.
Lay. Any other questions or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Brewer,
No.
Councilwoman Brown,
No.
Councilman Brown,
No.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
No.
Councilman Lay,
No.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
No.
Councilman Williams,
No.
President Godwin.
No.
Mr. President, vote is 0 yes, 8 noes.
With 0 yeas and 8 nays, the matter fails for lack of sufficient votes.
Mr. President, has pending ordinances and resolutions on third and final.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Council pending ordinances and resolutions on second reading.
CPO 2021-57, an ordinance establishing a budget in Fund 877 LDA, sponsored by Mayor Jerome A. Prince, City of Gary, Malik Harper, City Controller. Would you like for me to read them together?
Let's do all of the, all the ways and means and then all the finance if there's no objection.
CPO 2021-60, an ordinance approving a transfer of funds from Fund 872, Wheel Excise Surtax, to Fund 484, Community Crossings Grant, and establishing appropriations, sponsored by Mayor Jerome A. Prince, City of Gary, Malik Harper, City Controller. CPO 2021-61, an ordinance approving a transfer of funds from Fund 872, Wheel Excise Surtax, to Fund 448, Wheel Tax Road, sponsored by Mayor Jerome A. Prince, City of Gary, Malik Harper, City Controller.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell.
Mr. President, I move for passage of CPO 2021-57, 2021-60, and 2021-61 on second reading with a committee hearing set for August the 24th at 5 o'clock.
Been moved. Is there a, all right, so
Public hearing, September the 7th.
thank you. It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Councilman Barnes Caldwell and seconded by Councilman Brown. Any questions or discussion? And you said 5 o'clock, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Let me just ask, do you want to have that on the 31st since we're already going to be meeting on that date?
I would love it, but I don't know how everyone feels about all those meetings on one day.
Okay. I know that Councilman Lay is not available then, but
Oh,
We
okay.
also, it may help with efficiency.
The 31st can work.
Okay,
So let's change the 24th to August 31st at 6 o'clock.
that's fine. That's great.
Okay.
And you still second that, Councilwoman Brown?
Yes.
Well, thank you. Any other questions or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
With a vote of 8-0, CPO 2021-57-60 and -61 passed on second reading with a Ways and Means Committee meeting to be held on Tuesday, August 31st at 6 o'clock p.m. via Zoom.
CPO 2021-58, an ordinance authorizing a temporary interfund loan between City of Gary funds, sponsored by Mayor Jerome A. Prince, City of Gary, Malik Harper, City Controller. CPO 2021-59, an ordinance approving subsidies for the general fund during the calendar year 2021, sponsored by Mayor Jerome A. Prince, City of Gary, Malik Harper, City Controller. And CPO 2021-62, an ordinance accepting a donation from Horizon Bank to be used to purchase school supplies for the First Responders event, sponsored by Dwight Williams, Councilman 6th District, Mayor Jerome A. Prince, City of Gary, Malik Harper, City Controller.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Brown?
shall I ask to have these three ordinances moved to August 31st as well?
Let's do that. Maybe it's 7 o'clock?
Fine.
Okay.
I move the passage of CPO 2021, 58, 59, and 62 on August 31st at 7 o'clock, and a public hearing on September 7th.
Been moved by Councilwoman Brown and seconded by Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell. Any questions or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Brewer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown,
Yes.
Councilman Brown,
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell,
Yes.
Councilman Lay,
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon,
Yes.
Councilman Williams,
Yes.
and President Godwin.
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With a vote of 8-0, CPO 2021-58-59 and -62 passed on second reading with a Finance Committee meeting to be held on Tuesday, August 31st at 7 o'clock p.m. with a public hearing to be held on Tuesday, September 7th at 6 o'clock p.m. Councilman, I'm sorry, proceed.
CPO 2021-63, an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Gary, Indiana, requiring all persons entering schools within the city limits of the City of Gary to wear face coverings to prevent the spread of coronavirus disease. Sponsored by Jerome A. Prince, Mayor Jerome A. Prince, City of Gary, Dr. Roland Walker, Gary Health Commission.
Councilman Brewer?
Make a motion to suspend the rules and pass on all three readings, CPO 2021-63.
It's been moved by Councilman Brewer and seconded by Councilwoman Brown and Councilwoman Barnes Caldwell. Any questions or discussion?
Yeah, I have a discussion, Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
Under House Bill 1315, they took jurisdiction completely away from anything. You don't even have to talk to the City of Gary any longer, mayor, that is. It's Mr. Walker's or Dr. Walker's authority, is it coming from some kind of executive order? He can go into that separate corporation and tell them what they must do?
Well, let me say this. I had the same question. I met with Dr. Walker and Attorney McCain and our Corporation Counsel, Attorney Pohl, yesterday. So that was a question I had. And but I won't put Dr. Walker on the hook for legal questions, but I'll ask Attorney Pohl.
Well, let me also it would be interesting to do this on all three readings if we have a gap. In other words, I don't know if you asked the question, did they meet with emergency manager, Dr. McNulty?
They did not meet with her, but I spoke with her after our meeting and gave her the heads up. She informed me that she has already implemented this within the Gary Community School Corporation. So, and that was, again, another question I had. I didn't want to do anything to sideline, their operations. So she says they're already in compliance. Of course, this would also apply to every school, including charters as well. So I can't attest to whether they were, communicated with, but.
Excuse me, Mr. President.
Councilman Brown?
Yeah, thank you. I believe the Health Commission is trying to join as a panelist so he can speak on this matter. Also, I had recently received an email from the county health director concerning mandatory masks indoors for the entire county. So I'm just trying to figure out where we're at on this. Maybe if someone could have the health commissioner join in as a panelist, that may be.
He's on.
Is he on? Could
yes.
we allow him to speak? Because it is a health issue. Thank you very much.
So
he's going to have to answer a legal question.
Yeah, if we could, let's deal with the jurisdiction issue first. Yeah.
So,
all right, Attorney Pohl.
Yes, thank you very much. So I had the exact same question that both Councilman Lay and President Godwin had. I did reach out to the council for the Gary Community School District and had raised that exact issue. They had stated that pursuant to the executive order, and as long as it was passed by the by the council, that they believed that under the PL 219 of this year, that they would be subject to that. And really at this point, it's a non-issue as it pertains to the school district because they have already essentially established the face mask mandate as well. What I think Dr. Walker was trying to, what he's trying to establish, and I'll let him speak to this himself, was to ensure that all schools, not just the Gary's Community School District, which was taken over by the state, were able to, were complying with the mask mandate, particularly because of his concern that students under 12 years old who are not eligible for the vaccination, and even those that are older, the low numbers of vaccinations that are currently out there right now, given those facts, the close quarters, the inability to socially distance, and some of the other variables that that they're predicting will be very, very detrimental to the younger students that are in these close quarters, trying to basically put us back to school where we were last year at the 2020-2021 the beginning of the school year last year with the executive order that was in effect by Governor Holcomb at that time. So as it pertains to whether or not there's jurisdiction, I believe that's kind of as of right now, it's a little bit of a gray area, but it's almost a moot issue given the fact that they have already instituted a mask mandate, the Gary Community Schools. But from the, as I stated, from the representation that I've gotten from the council or the council for the Gary Community Schools, they seem to be under the impression that that would be something that they would fall under the jurisdiction of. When coupled with the executive order from the governor that essentially stated that the local health commissioners could institute more stringent or more restrictive measures if those were passed by the council.
Just one quick question before we turn to Dr. Walker. Is there a timeline or a date of expiration on that executive order from the governor?
The public health emergency is continuously being, basically it's an executive order that expires on August 31st. From what we're hearing, that it's probably going to be a continuing order as we go along. I think back in June we stated, well, this is probably it. July 1st with all the new laws, that's going to be it. And here we're at the end of August, and we're still seeing these orders, and the numbers are going up. And I'll let Dr. Walker speak to that.
Thank you, Dr. Walker.
So I'm not a lawyer, and I don't play one on TV. However, the health commissioners as a whole in the state do meet periodically with our attorneys. And it is the belief that currently that, particularly with the support of the council, that under the pandemic, that the buildings of the schools do fall under that jurisdiction. And then there's a possibility then that there may be a legal challenge, but now there has never been a legal challenge to that. As far as the support from the Gary school system, Dr. Minolta did communicate to me that she's in support of this ordinance. And to the bigger picture, I gave a report that I don't have the numbers in front of me, but how many of our schools currently either have students, faculty, or staff that are infected, and most of our schools do over the last 3 days. Most of the schools are reporting infections. So the Delta variant, which, you know, I always joke around is not your grandfather's variant, is a lot more infectious than the coronavirus of 19 months ago, particularly more infectious to younger people, and particularly more virulent too, causing more disease. So I think this is particularly important, whereas we have everybody under the age of 12 that don't have the opportunity to get vaccinated, as well as nationally, 12 to 17 years of age is still less than 35% vaccinated. As we get through the fall and people are more indoors, you're just going to see massive increase in numbers. It's going to be scary, to be honest with you. And then couple that with the fact that in schools, and this is mostly a cost saving measure, students are not kept 6 feet apart, but they're kept 3 feet apart. So that allows for larger class sizes. So you can imagine then there's going to be a greater spread of virus. So we believe that the mask mandate, and I don't like using the word mandate, the mask requirement will help to protect our kids, and more importantly, to help them stay in school, because if we don't do this, obviously, as the infection rates go up, we'll have to close schools and go back to Zoom style school, online school. And obviously we're trying to avoid that. So we think the mask requirement will help keep our kids safe and keep them in schools.
Mr. President.
Councilman Witherspoon.
I have one question for Dr. Walker. Dr. Walker, has there been any information given to you on a booster for those that have already had their shots?
So that is a dynamic answer to your question, in that currently the response is going to be boosters will be offered for people with mRNA virus, because the studies are not complete on Johnson & Johnson. That's not an mRNA virus. Vaccine, pardon, mRNA vaccine. For Moderna and Pfizer, a booster is currently offered for the immunocompromised. So that would be cancer patients on chemotherapy or immunosuppression for like rheumatoid arthritis or lupus or things of that nature. What we believe is going to happen in the next month or so, we believe that the senior citizens, and I'm not giving an age, I've been hearing the number 85 and up, but I think it'll be lower than that. And healthcare workers will be offered a booster. And then the general public, and it'll be anybody who's had shots, second dose, 8 months or longer. But that hasn't occurred yet. And so that's a speculation now. So right now, boosters are only to the immunocompromised who are on chemotherapy or immunosuppression.
Diabetics included in that?
No, so immunocompromised is a large group, but they particularly want people who are being immunosuppressed by a treatment. So chemotherapy will suppress your treatment. Immune suppression for lupus that will suppress. But there are lots of things that are considered immunosuppressed that aren't included. Like pregnancy is considered immunosuppression, but that's not considered right now for boosters.
President.
Councilman Brown and then Councilman Lay.
I think. What about as far as mask?
And I believe the mayor also asked for visitors. But I know at the health department, we've continued to have all visitors come in with masks, and I know the court does too. And I believe in the mayor today in his statement was asking all visitors into buildings. Once again, that's a fluid and dynamic answer too. I'm very protective because I understand how viruses mutate and how they work. and I would like to see, you know, an across the board mask requirement. But we need to also understand that the public has their concerns, their fears, and make sure that everybody buys into what we're doing. So don't want to be heavy-handed at all. That's not my attempt at all. And so some of these things will be gradual to make sure that people understand why they're happening. I think that the worst thing we could do is have misinformation. You know, I akin it to when I was a kid. Sometimes my parents would tell me to do something, and just because they told me they wanted me to do it so many times, I wouldn't do it, right? So I think people need to understand why it's happening. If we have to give crash courses in immunology and virology, so be it. Because whatever it takes to meet people where they are, that's what we need to do, because this is a very serious issue. And a virus's job is simply to mutate and to infect you. And we are currently the dog chasing the tail with the low vaccine rates and the low mask usage. Once again, I always like to shout out the 46404, who is the highest vaccination rate in the city, higher than the state at large. And where I live, 46403, we have one of the lowest. So I'm encouraging my neighbors, please go get vaccinated.
One more question. What about the rate of children that are being infected? Are we looking at those numbers? Because they've just gotten back to school. And I saw, or in the state of Mississippi, like the first week of school, 1,000 kids were tested positive for the virus.
So it would be easy to point at Mississippi and say, look what they're doing wrong, because they're doing a lot wrong. And it would be easy to say, well, look at Gary, or look at Lake County, or look at Indiana, because there's a lot of things that have been done right here, although I would like to be better. But even with that, hospitalizations are up for children. In my report today, I did the update for the city. There was not one school that didn't either have a teacher, staff member, or student with infection in the last 3 days. So the ones I reported out all the ones that were listed on the state health site. So that's everybody that reported. So that being said, obviously the schools have infections there, and that's to be expected. I mean, it's rampant, and it's probably a lot higher because people aren't getting tested. Like the rate of testing 12 months ago was much higher than it is now, right? It's not the end thing to get tested right now. So we know that the infection rates are much higher than what we're seeing from our reporting testing. And Lake County right now was right around 8% infection rate, positivity rate. So we're in the yellow. Lake County just got declared for yellow. So it's pretty high, and we need to take the appropriate steps to protect ourselves. I still think, by the way, that Gary people have done a pretty decent job. I think our infection rates are low. I think our vaccination rates are low. But just observation in terms of mask usage, in terms of, I try my best to shop Gary, and inside of convenience stores, grocery stores in Gary, our citizens wear masks. So, I mean, that's what I don't see that the further south I go, but our citizens do wear masks.
Dr. Walker, I have one other question for you. You're going to be requiring mask usage for employees in the buildings and whatnot, but what about those first responders that are working outside of the building, such as General Services, Gary PD, Gary Fire Department? What about those individuals? Will they be required to wear masks as well?
So I'll have to go back and review policy, because we didn't include that. But it was my understanding that all first responders, police, firemen, General Services, when they have contact with the public, policy was to wear masks. So that would be something I need to review, because I didn't think that had changed.
Thank you.
Mr. President.
Councilman Lay.
When you get this booster, will it be the same shot? If you had Pfizer, you would get a Pfizer booster?
So I think that's a fantastic question. I think that they're going to ask that everybody get a Pfizer to get a Pfizer, and a Moderna to get a Moderna. Those two are pretty interchangeable, but I don't know that from the science, I'm not sure that a Johnson & Johnson could be boosted with a Pfizer or Moderna, because this is a way different mechanism. I would recommend for now that everybody just do the same one, just to be certain. But I can't see any reason why Pfizer and Moderna could not be used interchangeably. But once again, I don't I don't run the CDC, so I don't want to make that recommendation. But I think that's a really good question, by the way.
If somebody came to you and demanded the Safe Shop, you would be open to give it to them, wouldn't you?
Yeah, so I think if you change brands, I think for Pfizer.
No, I'm saying you come and want the same brand. The same brand. I had Pfizer. I would want Pfizer.
I totally agree. Just anecdotally, yeah, I totally agree that you would want that. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions related to the mask mandate for schools?
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Brown?
I don't have a question related to that, but I had something I forgot to mention. I got from Calumet Township trustee. There's going to be a community food giveaway starting tomorrow, August 18th, every Wednesday through November the 3rd.
Councilwoman Brown?
Gee, let's let her finish. We can finish.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Please proceed. Go ahead.
Every Wednesday, August 18th through November the 3rd, from noon until supplies are run out at the Calumet Township Multipurpose Center. And I forgot to mention it. So it'll be every Wednesday from noon until the supplies run out. From starting tomorrow, which is August 18th, through November the 3rd.
All right. Thank you, Councilwoman Brown. Any questions or discussion related to the mask mandate for schools? We're just voting to hear it on all three readings, just to be clear. I think we've covered the substance. So
I thought we already did that. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. All right.
I have a question.
Oh, Councilwoman Barnes-Caldwell.
Dr. Walker, I'm over at Bethune, and the last few days, it's been so hard trying to get the parents to understand you can't come in the building without a mask. You have to send the children with a mask every day. You know, they're sending them in without masks. I'm running out of masks. I have to go over and pick up some more tomorrow because I'm running low. But yeah, it's important, and I don't know what we're going to have to do to make them understand. Because I had 3 children out this week, yesterday and today, with different little illnesses. So yeah, I'm a little scared.
So, Ms. Caldwell, I think that Bethune has the most challenges because they have the youngest children. And as you know, I have a special connection to Bethune. So, you know, I hear a lot of what goes on in Bethune. And just that's the greatest challenge there. So, you know, anything that the health department can do to help supply with masks, you know, we'll offer that if we have, you know, because occasionally we get those donations from the state and we can distribute it. So I think Bethune has the hardest of all the jobs of keeping the mask on the kids, first of all, and probably on the parents entering the building, what I hear anecdotally too. So.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Barnes-Caldwell, and thank you, Dr. Walker. You sound like the Surgeon General. Councilman Brewer.
Yes, and thank you, Dr. Walker, for being on with us. I would just like if you can come at least once a month and give us updates on where we are at with this virus that's transpiring. And also, can you tell the public where they can get tested at throughout the city?
So there's a few places. One, the Gary Health Department does testing Tuesday through Saturday. And the reason why we don't do Monday is a heavy volume vaccination day, and we just don't have the staff to do both at the same time. Because we do vaccinations and we do testing, and just Mondays it's just too taxing to do both. Community Health Net offers testing for COVID. Edgewater Health offers testing for COVID. So those are the largest ones. So I know for Edgewater, the largest places that they do testing is on Broadway, 35 Broadway, and also down on 6th Avenue, which is near also. It's an interesting area between 5th and 6th Avenue where Edgewater, Community Health Net, and the health department are kind of together doing a large volume of testing. And then Edgewater has a test towards Glen Park. And those are the places that do the largest amount of testing. Occasionally, because it's not as consistent as it used to be, you can get rapid testing still at Hudson Campbell. But I can't even give you a schedule for that because that was a private company that offered it to the city, and they're not consistently there. So, but by the way, the health department does now have rapid testing too. So you have both PCR and rapid. And I understand why people want the rapid. But for assurances, if you're doing a rapid, I would recommend also getting the PCR. And I hate the PCR, so I know nobody wants that thing stuck up their nose. I totally get it. I avoid it as much as I can, but it's just the best way to do it. So that I would recommend that to everybody.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Walker. Any other,
President,
Councilman Lay?
this testing, what's the 2 ways of doing it? Rapid.
So there's 2 rapid ways. There's a swab rapid and there's blood rapid. And the blood test also can tell you about whether you had infection currently or a recent past. So that's why the rapids get to be so effective.
That's the blood test. The rapid is the blood test.
Correct.
Okay.
So, I mean, there also is a blood test that's not rapid, but you know, I mean, only hospitals do that. But you can get a rapid blood test that tells you current infection and recent past, and then you can get a PCR that tells you current.
All right, thank you. At this time, we'll take our vote on hearing it on all 3 readings.
Councilman Brewer? Councilman Brewer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown?
Yes.
Councilman Brown?
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell?
Yes.
Councilman Lay?
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon?
Yes.
Councilman Williams?
You're muted.
Yes.
And President Godwin?
Yes.
Mr. President, vote is 8-0.
With a vote of 8-0, CPO 2021-63, it can be heard on all 3 readings. At this time, we will take the vote. Is there a motion for passage of CPO 2021-63?
Mr. President, move for passage of CPO 2021-63.
It's been moved by Councilman Brewer and seconded by Councilwoman Brown. We've already had the overview. Any other questions or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Brewer?
Yes.
Councilwoman Brown?
Yes. Yes.
Councilman Brown?
Yes.
Councilwoman Caldwell?
Yes.
Councilman Lay?
Yes.
Councilman Weatherspoon?
Yes.
Councilman Williams?
Yes.
President Godwin?
Yes.
Mr. President, the vote is 8-0.
With a vote of 8-0, CPO 2021-63 passes and is so ordered.
Mr. President, it's pending ordinances and resolutions on second reading.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President.
Councilman Brewer?
I know on the meeting on, I think that's August 31st. Let me get here. For the Planning and Development Committee, I also want to have a discussion. It's an ordinance that we kind of thought was already in the midst, but it's not, to talk about contractors, licensed contractors. And I don't have an ordinance before, but we will be having an ordinance. But I want to entertain the conversation at that meeting to have it. Hopefully we will have an ordinance before us that will be presented to the council at the next council meeting. But I want to kind of speed the process, you know, if we can, some kind of way, but at least we can start the discussion on it. So I want to just announce that we will have that conversation at the Planning Development Committee also.
Mr. President,
Councilman Lay?
who's drafting that ordinance? We don't have, we're bringing it up. Who's drafting it?
The law department, I believe, is drafting the ordinance. Yes.
Their work.
What was that?
It's the work of the law department.
Yes, sir.
All right. There's no other questions. Someone's about to speak.
Mr. President, this is
Paul?
yes. One thing I did want to mention on the prior ordinance that was just on 2021-63. I wanted to make sure that I addressed this before the end of the meeting because I just realized it, but there was a typo as far as the date in there that I could correct. And I don't know if you would have to take a motion to correct that, but essentially there was an incorrect date in section 3A. that I just realized in looking at it. Just caught my eye as I was going through. I'm not sure if this was just the previous version that just got copied. I did also want to make sure that I did thank the council as well for hearing it on all 3 readings.
Well, thank you.
What's the date that you need to correct?
It should be today's date, August 17th. I'm sorry, tomorrow's date, August 18th. Would be the first date that it would be in effect.
So
I know, but I figured before the council meeting ended.
All right, so looks like so we need to make a motion to amend, right? By insertion.
I don't believe so, Mr. Chair.
Attorney Williams, is it not material enough to change? Attorney Williams?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, my position has been the same. Something that minor, it's been stated, it's a scribbler's error. Just simply put the correct date. There's no need to do a motion on that. He acknowledged it in the meeting. Just simply put the correct date. That would be my recommendation.
Perfect. Insert the correct date, and if the clerk has no issues, I'll initial next to that insertion. We've done this and stated it in a public meeting. So that should suffice. Turn off Councilman Lay's mic. I don't want him to say anything about it.
No, I do have a question. Oh, no, I'm not going to argue that. No, I'm not going to. You make people think I'll argue everything. What happens if the parent shows up? I don't care what is that Bethune. In fact, I created that one. That refuse to utilize the mask for the child and or themselves. What happens then? What happens?
School officials have the authority to expel the person from any person, not just the child or the parent, if there are any visitors that
I'm not concerned with the visitors. I'm concerned with people that have to be there or should be there. Child.
They could have them removed from the property, and they would. I'm not 100% sure if they could provide a remote option. I know a lot of the schools are, but ultimately, to put us back at last year's, the status of last year at the beginning of the school year, where everyone was required to wear masks.
I should make sure the charter schools are aware. I mean, we give them almost no time. I'm not arguing the time.
Yeah.
So they are fully aware. Could the law department, sub-department of the city of Gary notify all schools by emails?
We're intending to, yes.
The ordinance provides, I think, that the clerk's office is supposed to distribute the ordinance to all schools. Is that correct?
That's correct. But obviously the law department would work with, it's a team effort, however we can get the word out. I know that the mayor's office has already started messaging on this. So, whoever and all hands on deck, however we can get the word out, we need to, so.
All right. Thank you. If there's no other questions or discussion on the motion on the table, roll call, Madam Clerk.
And this roll call is for?
The actual passage. I think we voted, or did I already? I'm sorry, I'm going backwards. We went so far into the discussion. So we have concluded our third and final, is that correct?
Yes, second reading, yes.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, we did the vote on the mask mandate. We got into such detailed conversation. At this time, we will have our mayor's report. Attorney McCain.
Good evening, Mr. President. Thank you very much for this opportunity to bring greetings on behalf of Mayor Prince. I don't have a substantive report today. I would like to say a few things. Number one, Mayor Prince celebrated a birthday on yesterday, and we wish to extend him a happy birthday and thank him for his service to the city. On today, August 17th, is Madam Vice President's birthday. So we wish her a happy birthday, Councilwoman Ty Atkins from the 4th District. And if the president will allow me 1 point of personal privilege,
Absolutely.
I'd like to extend a happy 90th birthday to my mother, Laura McCain, on tomorrow, August the 18th.
Happy birthday.
Birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Come on out and celebrate the season finale of Wind Down Wednesday, and you might get a glimpse of my mom, and we can get out on the dance floor. We'll be doing a good day. All right. So
Just make sure she bottles up all those secrets and shares them with all members of the council.
Absolutely. She has a few. So that concludes the mayor's report for today, and I'm happy to entertain any questions that the council may have.
Thank you. Looks like Councilman Brewer, Councilman Brown. Is that you, Councilman Williams, too?
No.
Okay, Councilman Brewer, then Councilman Brown.
Just one thing I would ask Attorney McCain if he can talk about upcoming street closures concerning the railroad tracks throughout the city. I see there's quite a few of them, if he can discuss those.
Thank you very much, Councilman Brewer.
Yes, sir.
The one that is coming up as far as the railroad is concerned is August the 26th. We have a closure in the first district on County Line Road at the intersection of US 20. But there are a few others throughout the city, Councilman Brewer, that will be occurring during that time frame and before then. And I have an email that I sent out to the council, but I don't have it in front of me. So if you could just give me, or do you have it in front of you?
Yes, I do. I can go through it if you like. It's
Thank you, sir.
I didn't know if you had it or not. But 15th Avenue between Polk and Tyler will be closed on August 18th from 7 a.m. and will be open back up the same day. Virginia north of 23rd Avenue will be closed on August 18th at 7 a.m. This road will be open Friday evening, August the 30th.
20th.
21st Avenue and Massachusetts will be closed at 7 a.m. on August 19th. This will be open August 20th, Friday evening. Those are the road closures for railroads in the city of Gary.
Thank you, Councilman Brewer. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, sir.
I did want to note that Councilwoman Atkins and myself will be meeting with Attorney McCain and I think some other members of the administration to discuss part of the ARPA dollars. So I know we've been having that discussion earlier this year and throughout the year. We're delighted to participate in that next week. And I would just say that I know that we've gotten a lot of, I get a lot of police officers and firefighters who've been reaching out to me, wanting to know what we're going to do about hazard pay. So I want to emphasize the importance of that conversation and looking forward to our meeting.
Mr. President.
Councilman Lay.
All people that work for that time should get hazardous pay. That it's based on the pandemic, not based on whether you carry a firearm or had a long discussion about this hazardous pay.
Yep.
Hazard is contracting the disease. So the people at the health department, people at City Hall, anyone that worked for this time period should be treated equally. There's no reason to give the fire and police additional money over anybody else that worked during the pandemic, whether they were, picking up trash, no matter what they were doing.
Mr. President?
Yes, Attorney McCain.
Oh, I agree with you, Councilman Lay. The United States Department of Treasury has defined what employees we can classify as essential employees, and those particular employees who are eligible for premium payments. The administration, and I'm sure that the council leadership agrees, that we want to be as equitable as possible. So when we cannot give them a premium payment by way of the American Rescue Plan Act, we would like to explore every opportunity to give them some sort of bonus, because I'm with you 100%, Councilman Lay. I think our IT is essential employees with respect to 2020. They are not classified, unfortunately, as essential employees under the U.S. Department of Treasury guidance. But we don't want to leave them behind, and we don't want to forget them. We just have to figure out another mechanism in order to have them receive the compensation as well.
That's not what I'm talking about. I certainly don't disagree with that as a concept. I do not believe, and again, it's only because I've had several conversations with firemen and policemen, that because they carried the gun or put out fires, they should be especially treated. You know, I do not believe that is the intent. Just follow whatever the U.S. government says. If they're treating a person over jail service the same as a police or fireman, then I agree with that. If they're treating them any different, I disagree, because it's the virus that is making it dangerous.
You are correct, sir. And that is, general services is considered an essential component or an essential department, because their work was every single day. They did not get the opportunity to work from home or to work virtually. They were out every single day. And we all remember the infamous storm of February 14th through the 17th of last year, or this year rather. I would like for it to be last year, but it was this year. So we understand that general services would be included in that, as well as our first responders, which would include fire and police.
Yeah, I don't like the way it's being separated. Let me ask another question. What about a council employee that worked for this period? Are they included in this special group of people?
According to the U.S. Department of Treasury guidance, no.
Okay, that is that no is the answer.
All righty. I should quit while I'm ahead.
What about the health department?
Health department is considered a part of this, because they not only worked during the pandemic, but they had exposure to potential COVID-19 victims. I shouldn't use the word victims, but folks who have contracted COVID-19, and they are considered, health workers are considered in the category of essential workers.
Let me just say this, if I may. I really didn't mean to open up that can of worms. We're going to have several conversations about the use of the ARPA dollars and who qualifies and who doesn't. And I don't want to. Maybe I shouldn't have mentioned it at all. But I just was pointing out police and fire, because they've been particularly on me about it. And of course, we're losing them daily. I think we're less than 150 in each department. So that's a whole other conversation. So if we can, I'd prefer to do this in committee in terms of the details of who qualifies and who doesn't.
Okay. As long as you are very specific as to how you arrive at that decision to differentiate between the people, very specific.
Absolutely.
In other words, not because he wears a uniform, And again, I think all should be compensated. So that'll get you off the hook. All should be compensated. But you also interrupted me, but that's okay too.
Hey, I think we're 1 for 10, but we'll have that.
Oh, come on.
Mr. President.
Councilman Brewer.
I do want to add just a little bit for you in this conversation here. I do think the conversation between police, fire, other essential workers, it needs to be tiered. Whatever that dollar amount, I would say it needs to probably be tiered, because police and probably more or less fire, paramedics, they definitely came in contact with victims on a regular basis. I mean, there was a whole ambulance that was just dedicated for picking up patients that was infected. And men and women still went out when they knew people had COVID and took these people to hospitals and things of that nature and did the transport or whatever they had to do. And I think, and quite a few of them caught COVID. A lot of them we didn't even talk about, but quite a few of them caught COVID. But they still did the job. We didn't have a walkout where different ones did not come to work because they were just scared of being infected. They came to work and they did the job. And I think that should be recognized and commended.
Well, thank you, Councilman Brewer.
Service also.
I agree. I agree. Any other questions for the for Attorney McCain? Okay.
Will we get any information about these 4 buckets? Is that what you're going to come back with?
So this particular meeting is dealing with the revenue loss, which we know is the biggest advantage to the city in terms of the flexibility with the use of the dollars. But we're also going to have to talk about the town halls that are going to happen per district. So I think this is a conversation that's going to extend probably through October. I'm hopeful that we will pass a plan in October, ideally before we really get intense on the budget, because we're going to have a busy 3 months otherwise. But I anticipate that at our September meeting, Councilwoman Atkins and myself will be able to provide a very thorough update of where we are. And I'm hopeful that also that the town halls will be announced, that the mayor is going to be doing for each district to take in public feedback. So more to come on that. I didn't mean to open that up, but I'm looking forward to our conversation next week. Any other questions or discussion for Attorney McCain? All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We stand adjourned. Have a good evening.